Good morning to everyone in the room. Good afternoon, good evening, good night to those online as appropriate. This is Registration Extension Protocols Extensions Working Group, and hopefully you're here to discuss that or hanging out in the room, which is finally warming up. Boy, it was like a freezer in here when we first came in. But thank you to the Secretariat for pulling all that together. Okay, we're going to get started here and we'll just jump right in. Please do make sure to log in with the on-site tool, in your handheld or whatever, log into the full video, QR codes all around. We should all be familiar with that. This is our traditional note well. I think the most important thing to take away from this myself is that this is a public meeting and anything you say or do here is considered a public contribution. But it is the list of all of the policies and procedures by which the IETF operates. And hopefully you have already seen this before and you are familiar with it. And if not, encourage you to please take a close look at that. Moving on, we also have the note really well, just a reminder for us to keep in mind that we are working together in a diverse environment and it's important to be respectful and focus our discussions on the work at hand and not on the people. And of course, we do have an ombuds team for anyone who believes that they have an issue that needs some greater resolution. And the Code of Conduct Guidelines, just a reminder to speak slowly and stick to technical discussions. And of course, we are always looking for the best solution for the internet, trying not to just focus on our individual agendas. And this is our agenda as it has been published before coming here. This is your last chance to fix up the agenda. Anybody have any additional comments? I should give a special thank you to Jim Gould, who gave some detailed private comments about one of the first versions of this, but it all looks good now. So with that, we'll just jump right in here. Sticking with the agenda, we'll jump right into welcome and introductions, some of which we've already done. Let me offer up a thank you to Rick Wilhelm, who will once again take on the job of putting actions into the notes area for us so that we can record them for the historical record. Of course, anyone is welcome to log into that notes area and add your own notes in additional context, especially if you happen to be recorded inappropriately. I mean, if Rick adds some additional commentary and you don't like it, you should certainly go in there and correct it and fix that to be whatever it needs to be. On the document management side, we always like to remind people to please, we have a lot of smaller drafts running around and we always need a document shepherd to help us keep track of a document and help us in the end when we submit it to the ISG. Please join us and agree to participate in that process. And for those who may be new, being a document shepherd is a good way to really dig in and get a handle on the process and how to make things work. And then, of course, the last most important thing to do in this open introductions is to introduce our third co-chair. Jorge Cano is here to join us, and we welcome him quite heartily. He was added to our group. He has an interest in being a working group chair. This is his first foray, so if you feel like you need to give him some advice on how to deal with Antoine or I, that would be most welcome. You can meet him afterwards outside, and that'd be great. But thank you, Jorge. Quick small round of applause here. Okay, moving on, we actually have a recently published document. Last time we hadn't had any in a while, and we have one this time, RFC 9803, the DNS time to live values and dealing with that in EPP. And we'll have a new one for RDAP coming up as some new work opportunity to deal with. So thank you for that. I think we have a bunch of documents behind the scenes here going to come up. In the RFC editor queue, we have two documents that are still hanging out there. The email extension for internationalized email addresses is, publication is imminent. We have the clarification for EPP on best practices for deletion, which is in its final stages. And hopefully we're expecting that to come out of the RFC soon, RFC editor soon. And then moving along to documents submitted to the ISG, I did update these over the weekend to note that the announcement had been sent by our AD, but it also turns out the up-to-the-minute update on both of these two documents is that they are now in the RFC editor queue. That was announced this morning, just in case anybody didn't notice that. But I didn't try to fix up the slides to reflect all that. But that is an update as of today. So, we have quite a number of documents that are now in our publication queue that hopefully we will see before the end of this calendar year, and that would be very nice. And all of that is taking us through our quick administrative things. Now what we're going to do is take a look at very quickly, the 5 documents that we have on our document list that we don't have any additional work here in this particular meeting, but we'll take a couple of minutes here for each document and give each of the authors, if they want, a quick opportunity to take 2 minutes and offer us the next steps on their documents and what they're waiting for and when they expect to move these along. So that means that our first up here is Jim Gould, and he indicated before he's got audio working. So please, Jim, go ahead. And Jim, if you're speaking, we're not hearing you. Well, I tell you what, Jim, we'll give you a chance to to work on that, and let's move on just so that we can stay on schedule here and keep going. Let's go over to Mario. I believe Mario is in the room. So while you're coming up to the mic, I'll just tell people, Mario did submit some slides, and they are in the materials page, all documented there, but he's just going to speak to the last slide and the next steps for his document while he's here. Please.
Hi everyone, I'm Mario Lofredo from REGEXT.it. Since last meeting, we have published 2 versions of this draft. Most relevant changes are due to the publishing of 2 REGEXT drafts, namely just contact-UID and just contact-profiles. As a consequence of the first draft publishing, we removed any reference to the UID property in this draft. So as a further consequence, we made any concern about the use of the UID property in RDAP disappear. And as a consequence of the publishing of the JS Contact -profile draft, we added a language to define a JS Contact profile for RDAP, named simply RDAP in lowercase, and removed any properties, those properties not included in this profile. That's it.
Thank you.
Last thing, there are 2 new normative references, those regarding the REGEXT draft, but this draft are expected to complete the standardization process very soon.
2 quick questions for you. Last time we discussed this document here, there was a need for you just to describe the experiment that goes with moving this to experimental. That is in the document. And I just want to remind people that we are looking for some review of that as this document moves along. Yes. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. No, we Andy 2 days ago posted a review of the measure to evaluate the experiment. So we are now discussing about what are the best measures to evaluate the experiment. That's it. So probably we will change the measure to evaluate the experiment.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I would expect this document will move along quickly. Okay, next up we have Jim Gould again. Jim, let's give you another try to come online and you can do your 2 documents, the versioning and the EPP over quick. Go ahead. And we are still not hearing you. Although you're flashing on the screen. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. I totally missed that. Okay. Let Jim keep trying. Powell wants to ask a quick question about the JS contact.
Yeah, Power colleague Denik. I think there's very good change in the JS contact draft to use the profiles. This let's say, offers a lot of clarity. I reviewed the list.
Could you come a little closer to the mic, please?
Sorry. I reviewed the list of properties which are defined in the profile, and I think it can be, let's say, reduced even more because there are some, let's say, overlapping, name components which likely are not needed in the structure, and some others I will put it on the mailing list in detail. It's also redefining the reverse search tags for this profile, and I'm asking myself if we override it in IANA, so it means that the search, let's say, paths for J-card won't be working anymore because they will be replaced. So I think it needs some smart registration so it works for the old, let's say, profile with J-card and for the JS contact. Yeah, because right now it says just to replace it, so the, let's say, old one won't be supported anymore. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Please do make sure to bring that to the mailing list so that we can continue the work there in the comments. Jim Gould, I guess, is still having problems speaking.
Next in the queue.
Martin, in the queue, please go ahead.
Martin, SIDN. I'm just wondering, the document, it's marked experimental. What the idea is behind that, because it seems to me that if JS Contact, it could be a very good replacement for the J-card stuff. So I would rather see it go to the normal standards track, if possible.
So we've had this discussion before, and we came around to deciding that we didn't want to be in a place of competing with anything else. In particular, what currently is defined for RDAP, and it of course is waiting for J-card and the work that's going on there anyway. So our decision here in this group was to make this experimental and let the work continue that Mario is doing with the document.
Yeah, I don't understand why is it competing against the existing.
Because we have a standard for RDAP, and so it already has an object, a contact object.
Yeah, true, but we can change that, right?
Not necessarily. That's a different discussion, and we decided not to have that discussion, and to leave the current installed basin standard as is, and instead let this work continue as an experiment to see what happens.
Yeah, so we agreed not to agree on this, because I think everybody kind of hates the existing RDAP way of modeling the addresses. So I think JS Contact has potential to make stuff for RDAP a lot easier. So I just, if it were up to me, I would not make this experimental. Thanks.
Thank you. Andy, you want to add to this? Which hat are you wearing as you speak here?
Yeah, so there is a slight change in the how we should think about this, in that if RPP adopts JS Contact, it's a much stronger argument for making it standards track for RDAP. So I think when we had our previous conversations about that, that wasn't part of the equation, but it could be now. So we should probably maybe take that to the mailing list and see how that's going to work.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm speaking as an individual. Sorry.
Yeah. So with that added context, I think what I would offer is when we get to, as we continue the discussion of JS Contact on the list, then we can open this question again and let the discussion happen there. Since the document hasn't really been submitted yet, we have an opportunity to continue that. Powell, please. And I think I'm going to draw a line under the queue here. We're not supposed to be, this is just supposed to be a quick update of these documents. Since they weren't asked to have a discussion here, this particular part of the agenda is just a quick update of next steps. And the intent is to move discussions to the mailing list if that's what we want. So I want to draw a line under Powell here at this point.
So, very short. So I think the competing part was about the other draft we had about simple contact. So we decided to push both as experimental and see what happens. Right now, I know this simple contact is still a thing. So the author is shaking head, so likely not. So I think at least we won't have this problem if we decide to not to do experiment, but rather to go to the standard track. But let's discuss it.
Yes, thank you for the additional context and reminder about that. At the time when we decided to move this to experimental, we had the simple contact document also, and we've just set that one aside. Okay. Jim Gould is still not having his microphone work, which is going to be a little bit of a problem in the next section, in this section later, because you've got a presentation to give, Jim. But I will read out what he put in the chat room here, just for the record. So let's see. Oh, so he's talking about the versioning draft was updated to add the EPP extension registration, and they're looking for additional review from this working group to gain some additional implementation experience about that. And then moving forward to the transport over quick document, they want to notify the quick working group of the draft and ask for feedback there. Is that an action request to the chairs, Jim, to move that there, or were you going to do that yourself? And then we're not aware of any additional work items. So the desired level of review for regex and quick and implementation experience. And so the draft should be ready for working group last call. So just a clarification for us here up front, Jim, were you intending to talk to the quick working group yourself, or for us to do that? And you're saying help would be appreciated. Okay, so we'll seek to get that done. And then you're saying that the quick document should be ready for working group last call. So we'll take that notice too as an action here. All right, moving on, we have Mario to give us a quick update on the transport over HTTPS.
Again, Mario Alfredo. Since last meeting, we have added the language to register the APP transport over HTTPS in the APP extensions registry and nothing else. So basically, we are looking for further implementations beyond VeriSign and .it implementations. And basically, we think that the authors think that this draft is ready for the working group last call.
Okay, thank you. So noting that for everyone here, there's an action that we can put this on our working group last call list, that the chairs will take that on board here. And we'll move that along too as we go forward. And the last item here is the ARP-DAP extension for RPKI registration data. Jazdip, Andy, which one of you was going to say something? And Jazdip is coming to the mic.
Hi, Jasdeep Singh, Erin. So since we last met, there was a recommendation to promulgate this work in the CIDR-Ops working group, which is related with internet routing security. So we did that at the last IETF. There was a presentation there. And I think from various measures, it was well received. So we spent the time until now, as I sent in my note, for the latest version, which is version 02, that we have included the feedback from the folks in the CIDR-Ops working group. And it was pretty rich feedback, so it was truly appreciated. And at this point, my request is to this working group to if possible, look at the RDAP level details. That did we get right? For example, the naming of things and all that. So that is my request right now, and hopefully that can be done over the next few months. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So Jim Gould is saying, okay, so that takes care of the existing work updates, and impressively enough, even with all that discussion that we just had, we are right on schedule here, bringing us to the next thing about existing work presentations. So Jim, does that, just a quick question here, are you saying that you don't think you can get your microphone to work? So you're...
I believe it's actually an us problem because I logged into the online tool and I could hear him.
It's our problem.
Yes.
Okay. We're getting a report in the room that it's an audio issue, that they can hear him in the Meet Echo tool, right? That's what you're saying, logging into the full tool. I don't have my speaker turned on here, otherwise I could do that. Okay, I think that, yeah, and so Ori just posted a note in the chat asking the Meet Echo team to please take a look at that with Jim Gould, see if we can't fix that up. We'll have some time here. Here's the update on related work after the next section. But I am at this point going to turn this over to Jorge, who's going to moderate the rest of this meeting.
Okay, let's continue. We have two presentations for this section. The first one is RDAP extension by Andy. So please go ahead.
Am I clicking or?
If you wish.
It doesn't matter to me, but whatever's easiest. All right, we can try this. All right, so this is about the extensions draft, which, is this working? Which we've been talking about in the working group for a while, and we seem to be stuck on one issue. Can you advance the slide? That doesn't seem to be working.
The slide clicker. There we go. That should work now. Sorry.
It's all right. There we go. All right, so one of the things we've done in the latest round, the latest version, is we've added some terminology, specifically something called namespace identifiers, to talk about, to kind of help frame the discussion around the bearer identifiers. So some of the discussion on bearer identifiers, especially in the previous draft, was really specifically about the JSON, and the conversation is actually, or the concept is much more, much broader than just the JSON and RDAP. So it covers things like object class names and query parameters and so forth. So in order to help describe what the problem is, the draft introduces this term called namespace identifiers. So standard 95, which is the RDAP standard, says the following about this. So this is, I'm going into what we're talking about with bearer identifiers here, which says that you should have an extension ID under bar and whatever name part for your identifiers. And in fact, it has this is quoting from one of the RFCs, which basically says, implementation experience, we believe that this is going to cause problems if you don't do this. But keep in mind, it's a should, not a must. So, and it turns out that we have gotten feedback from implementers saying that when you do have bearer identifiers, it does cause some amount of problems. So, all right, so what is exactly a bearer identifier? A bearer identifier is when the extension ID is used and that is it. So in other words, where it was extension ID under bar, some sort of name part, when you omit the underbar name part, relying only on the extension ID, that's what we're calling a bearer extension, or sorry, a bearer identifier, extension identifier. By the way, that term does not actually exist in standard 95 either. But essentially what that is saying is that when you do that, you're violating the should from the standard. All right. So we've been discussing this on the mailing list and in meetings for, I don't know, 2 years. And so this is becoming a blocking item for the draft itself. And in the latest round, the latest version of the draft, we've described 3 positions that we've had. The first position is to just disallow them altogether. So effectively taking that should and making it a must. So effectively saying, no, you must not use bear identifiers anymore when you're writing extensions. So this does not go back and change any extensions that exist out there, but for the future, just don't ever do this again. The second position is no. Let's just take that should out altogether and go ahead and start allowing them in any new extensions that come along. We had an interim meeting, I don't know, 2 months ago, a month ago, something like that. And the subject of bear identifiers was the majority of that meeting. And out of that meeting, we were talking about doing a compromise. And so one of the compromises, or the only compromise I think that was put on the mailing list was that we could do this if there was a technical reason for, that you needed to do it. So why disallow? Which is the first position. So why disallow? Well, the reason is it simplifies the rules for writing extensions, and it makes the rules very consistent. So if you have places in an extension where you can use a bear identifier for one type of identifier or a bear extension identifier for one type and not another, that kind of makes when people go to implement it, they're going to mess that up in all sorts of different ways. So they'll sometimes use the extension, sometimes they won't. So again, we've gotten implementation feedback saying that in some cases it does cause problems. The other thing is it kind of confuses the difference between what's the core of RDAP with what's an extension. And Jasdeep wrote I thought it was a very good message on the mailing list. Basically, the IETF has a bunch of RFCs on how to design protocols, and having multiple ways of doing things kind of violates a lot of that guidance. So I don't want to go into each one of those RFCs, but Jasdeep quoted them all and actually showed where if we disallow this, we're actually going towards a lot of this guidance. Hope that made sense. All right. So why allow? I think this slide's a little out of date because Powell sent a message to the mailing list with other reasons. So this is not strictly the only reasons out there. But in essence, this is kind of an aesthetics argument. So it's not really a technical argument. And in reality, software doesn't care, right? The users aren't seeing this. This is software interpreting all this stuff. The other thing is this is only usable if you have only one identifier of a type. So if you have multiple identifiers, you can't use a bear extension. You can't use the bear extension anyway. So I believe Powell also said that JS Contact and JWTs allow this, but I don't think that's an applicable comparison because those standards they don't allow multiple different types of identifier in those extensions. So the RDAP extensions are actually different. There's much more stuff that goes into an RDAP extension. All right. And then the compromise. So the compromise, which was put on the mailing list, was, hey, you can do this if you have a good technical reason for doing it, something we haven't thought of. It's probably unlikely because we now have 10 years of experience with this protocol, but it's very unlikely that there's a reason for it. But if there's something we haven't thought of, yes, you can go ahead and do this. It is like all compromises in the fact that it's intended to move us forward. I don't think it makes everyone happy, but that's what it's there for. All right, so what's the next step? So the next step is that we have all three positions in the draft. We like it if people would read them. And what we want to do in order to move forward is ask the chairs to make a very, very rough consensus call. And from there, we'll move forward with the draft. So I think we'll take questions.
So any clarifying questions about the summary that Andy gave regarding this? I'm trying not to extend the discussion too far. I believe this has been discussed quite extensively on the list. So I'm not seeing Oh, hands are up. Howell, you're up first.
Paweł Kowalik-Denik. So it's less of a clarifying question. It's more like clarification itself, because a lot of items are missing on the slides, which are regrets, because these were very deeply discussed during the interim meeting. So
Could you speak a little closer to
Yeah.
the mic?
So basically, one of the main reasons is not about beauty discussion. It's about protocol evolution, which we discussed in the interim. So basically, if we prefix all what is extension, and the extension will become so common that it's kind of part of the standard, when it will be stuck with the underscore identifier or prefix identifier forever. And it won't be, it will be like second-class citizen. This is what we discussed. Second, the interoperability is not an issue, because if identifiers are registered with IANA, everyone can look up, and this implementer feedback, it's always the negative feedback arrives the authors, the positive feedback doesn't arrive, because if someone didn't have any problem, that they will not report. So it's kind of something to account for, but I have doubts if it's decisive. Okay. Also, the underscores that make the protocol actually less readable. You can argue, okay, machines don't care, but machines are programmed by humans, and they do care. Right now, they start to be programmed by machines again. They tend to follow patterns that humans did in the past, which may have a difference if you design something that is not natural. So this is about this part. And about the RFCs that Just Deep proposed, I fully agree. One way is better than two ways, but allowing them full scale is also a one way, so these RFCs will be fulfilled as well. And about compromises, we had discussion in the interim about other possible compromises, because this proposed compromise is the most discriminating compromise that can be done, because actually you always have the technical mean to implement something. So actually you will never have the condition fulfilled. And the other compromises were to distinguish, okay, IETF standards. So talking about protocol evolution, can use bearer identifiers if you do private prefix to know that it's something different.
Can we, I didn't realize your list was this long.
Yeah.
So the first one was about extensions that become so well used that that people think they're part of the core, right? That was, I think we did discuss that on the mailing list. There is, I mean, if you want to update the core, that there's a process for that. It's writing a draft and updating the thing. I don't think extensions should be updating the core, especially since they're first come, first serve extensions.
But many things start with extension. Think of RGP extension for EPP, right? Used by 85% of the implementers, but it's still an extension, right?
Yeah, but you're going to have backwards compatibility issues if you start changing things around.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I do want to jump in. The important thing here is not to repeat the discussion that's been had on the mailing list. Really just looking for new information. You were offering clarity, so additional points that you feel were not on his slides, but I don't think we need to get into a discussion and repeat what happened on the mailing list. I really want to move this forward if we can.
So the second one was, no, I've forgotten. I want to address the LLM one, because that's the one I didn't quite understand. You're saying you're saying that because we have AI now writing code, that the namespacing is causing a problem. I'm unclear what the argument is.
This was just an extension of the argument that humans follow patterns that they are used to use, and let's say this prefixing in JSON names is not a common pattern, and underscore is a typical used, let's say, snake case notation that people tend to use, and even we have it in RDAP all the places. And actually this draft, by using the let's say prefix notion, now forbids the snake case notation and proposes only camel case to, let's say, work around this problem, which wouldn't be there in the first place if the prefixing wouldn't be there. Okay, I will.
And what was, I'm sorry, what were the other clarifications?
No, it was about the options, because
Okay.
the options which
Oh,
we discussed was standard versus non-standard. If we want to make a distinction, I still think the better choice is to basically allow and have one choice.
But the last point you made was something with that not all the compromises were listed. There were more than one compromise. Is that it? I didn't quite understand that.
I mean that there's only this one that is saying that you can use BER if there is no other technical solution.
Okay.
But it was not the only compromise which was discussed or alternative solution.
Okay. What was it? What were the other compromises that were discussed?
I just said that distinguish between IETF standards that you can use BER and non-IETF thingies which are doing own thing.
Okay. Yeah. So no, I think that's okay. That was discussed. There were, I think it was Jim and someone else said that we should not have two classes of extensions. And because we did have that in one of the original versions of the draft and we took it out.
True, but we had a show of hands in the interim and it was half-half. So it was undecided, I would say.
Okay.
Just quickly, Jim Gould added a comment in the relevant to this thing here in the chat room, which I'll read out here. Oh, maybe, Jim, do you want to try and speak again? Yeah, and we're still not hearing him. I saw an AV person, I think, walk by at one point here. So, okay, I'll read his comment. He recommends BER extensions always allowed with a guidance where a BER extension identifier can be used when there is a single element of a particular type. Just to get that on the record.
Yeah, that's what the current position 3 says.
Right.
So,
okay, go ahead, Scott.
Scott Hollenbeck. Not a clarifying question, but a clarifying suggestion. One of the reasons we find ourselves in this situation where we are having, this discussion for as long as we have been, is because we've had a very small number of people who've expressed opinions. When you've got 4 or 5 people and 2 people on one side, 3 on another, it really is difficult to determine where consensus is. I see a lot more than that sitting in this room right now. If you are an implementer or a user of RDAP, and if you have some very specific experience that would be helpful here, please say so. Weigh in. Help determine where consensus lies.
Thank you, Scott. And I think I'll say thank you, Andy, for that at this point. I mean, Jim Gould's up there, but
so since we're, and unfortunately, and I'm sorry to have to ask the chairs to weigh in on this, but are there any questions that the chairs have?
I don't at this time. Look to my co-chairs here. Yeah, I think we've had a pretty good discussion ourselves about where we're going here, so I think we're good for the moment.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that what's important here, we've all been chatting about this issue, and we sort of came to this meeting thinking about what we were going to do here. It's interesting to note, as Scott just said, part of the problem here is, we have a half a dozen people and, only 3 positions. And so what exactly is consensus? It's been kind of awkward for us to think about all of this because we've had the luxury in this particular working group of never actually having to call consensus before in the existence of this group, which is kind of interesting. We've always managed to have really unanimity on all the work that we've progressed forward. We've gotten through the arguments here. We are going to bring this to the mailing list, but what I want to try to do here is walk through kind of the way that we're thinking about this and what we're gonna recommend on the mailing list. And people will have one last opportunity on the mailing list to speak their mind. And as Scott said, we'd really like to see some other voices in this discussion. I think it's pretty clear what the positions are of those who have been in this discussion. We're going to actually propose that we land on not allowing BER identifiers. So taking position 1 that's in the document. That seems like the most consistent and simplest solution to take, which is the criteria that we are using for deciding which way to go with these. The problem with option 3 is it really just takes off any constraints at all, really, or there's a minimum constraint there as defined by the one standard. But in the option 2 case of the compromise, there seems to be some guidance that's missing. And I think it's that guidance that we've never actually been able to find any agreement about that would support using option 2 from the draft. So if we can come up with the technical guidance and state what that is, then a compromise position becomes a reasonable thing to do. But absent a compromise position, it feels like the best thing to do, take the simple approach and really disallow bare identifiers, leave that as something which belongs to the standard. We'll leave those that currently exist in the extensions registry alone. Maybe at some day in the future, we'll clean all of that up, but it doesn't seem necessary to do that right now. Let's just protect ourselves in the future. So I think I'm just going to leave that hanging out there for a moment. Anybody want to add a quick comment to that? Or maybe the best thing to do is take it to the mailing list. We will write this up in a better way. We'll drop it on the mailing list and allow a couple of weeks of discussion and see if anything comes out of that. But I think after the year that we've spent discussing this or so, it's time to just make a call and go with it. Powell, I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, Paul Kwagdenik again. Now I don't understand why the chairs are suggesting choosing one option after interim showed 50-50 split in show of hands, and we didn't have any further, let's say, discussion or arguments going, which will argument this way or the other way.
All right, please.
Hi, Ori Steele, responsibility. So, I mean, it every now and then comes to the point where we have to figure out what rough consensus looks like. Obviously, the chairs here have a proposal. You're welcome to poll the room here, but just remember, anything like this always has to be confirmed on the list. So, just to clarify here, this chair proposal needs some time to be put out on the list and be reviewed, and then that it is the duty and responsibility of the chairs to determine what rough consensus will look like for us here. So thank you to the chairs and thanks to everyone who's engaged in the conversation. And also I want to echo what Scott said. If you've been sitting on the sidelines here thinking, not sure exactly which way to weigh in, you're still going to have time to weigh in on the list to make sure your position is heard. And I encourage you to do that. Thanks.
So thank you. And I think, Powell, yeah, my answer to you is that we're going to take it to the list. That's where the final thing is. Polling the room is interesting, but in the end, what matters is what happens on the list. We have to give everyone a chance to speak. And so rather than extending the discussion here, because I feel like this is something which is going to turn into a discussion, let's take it to the list and let it happen there. And then we have a record of it too. And that'll help us when it comes time to move the document forward. The document shepherd will have to summarize all of that and make that part of that record that we submit with the document wherever the choice ends up. So, okay. So I guess back to you, Jorge.
Thank you. All right. There's a second presentation from Andy, RDAP with extension media type.
I'm working on the slides. Why is it not? Do I have to take back the clicker?
Yeah.
Jim, do you want to try and speak again while I'm swapping up the slides?
Just trying to speak now.
Yeah.
But no audio.
Yeah. Yeah, it shows him like speaking, but
It shows you me technically speaking.
Yeah, the audio is still not coming through in the room.
Keep singing, Jim.
Keep speaking.
keep singing, Jim.
Oh yeah, I don't want to do that. That sounds like fun, but it also sounds like feedback to me. Not going to do that.
Here, you want me to go
Okay,
ahead?
so go ahead, and the clicker should work.
Sure. Wait a minute. James, try again.
Yeah, no.
I can hear me Jacko as well now.
All right. Well, he was, but we couldn't hear it on Anton's laptop either. So
Maybe let other person online speaking, then test it is whether audio is okay.
Are there any other people online? Gavin, can you speak online if you're online?
Yeah, and we're not hearing Gavin either now.
Okay. Yeah. He just not.
Oh.
Okay. Now can you try and speak for us, Jim?
Or anybody else?
Or anybody else? Okay, so the AV guy had me came by and had me plug a thing into my computer here, which doesn't seem to have made a difference. I sound like, oh, it sounds like I'm in a stadium.
they have their speakers on. That's why.
Oh, okay. Now we're getting an echo going through here. All right, can I unplug this? Do you want Jim to try and speak again? So Jim, can you try and speak again?
Or anybody else?
Or anybody else online? We're not hearing Jim. Anyone else want to open their mic, please, and try and speak?
It's not coming into me, Jacko. So,
Test.
Oh, we got somebody.
Okay, I assume the James has a issue on sending his audio.
Okay, Paolo, we're hearing Paolo's, which is good. The AV guy's in the corner doing something. Jim, one more time.
yeah, so Jim's audio isn't going through.
Yeah, so Jim's audio is not coming through, so that sounds like a local problem for Jim now at this point. Okay, can I unplug this thing from my
I
computer?
think so.
Can I pull it? Can Paolo, can you talk again for us? Can we still hear you?
Test. 1, 2, 3. Test.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Okay, thank you. We can
Okay.
hear Paolo. Okay. I'm gonna
Welcome.
leave this unplugged, and I think it's time to let Andy get to his
All right.
presentation, please.
So this is just an update on the RDAPX media type draft. We got a lot of good feedback on the mailing list. Essentially, we've changed the list parameter name to no longer require the media type and the content type header. We've removed the not recommended use of the parameter in links in favor of referencing RFC 8288. And the extension identifier is now, we renamed it and based on feedback on bare identifiers. All right, so let me go into each one of these in detail. So based on some implementer feedback, it basically said that in some software, it is not impossible, but somewhat difficult and not straightforward to change the content, the parameter in a content type header for every type of path that you've got. And so what we've done there is we've said, okay, fine. And then basically Martin suggested that maybe we just don't require the content type header to have the parameter. And so that's what we've changed in the draft. And that makes a lot of sense. So also the links, we had text in there that said using the extensions list parameter in a link, one of the RFC 8288 links is not recommended. And Mario pointed out that if we'd actually read RFC 8288, we'd see that it actually says it's a hint, and that clients should only take it as a hint, so it doesn't really matter. So we've removed that not recommended and then quoted the actual part of RFC 8288 that describes it as a hint for the client implementers. And then speaking of bare identifiers, it was pointed out that what we were doing was a bare identifier. So we've changed that. So now it's, we actually shortened the name of the parameter to EXTS, which is the actual name of the extension identifier as well. And then we just put the underbar list in there. So hopefully that makes sense. I think that's it. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? No?
Good to go.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next part of the agenda is update on the related work. This is a Jingle presentation too. I don't know if we can try again, maybe this time.
Did you see his note in the chat about he's doing it at RPP?
No.
Okay, so I think the comment to make about this presentation, Jim Gould had said this in the chat room earlier on. He's giving the same presentation. He had the same slide deck for this group and for EPP. He had a particular set of slides that out of that deck he was going to do here, and a different, and an alternating set he was going to use in RPP. But he'll talk about both things in EPP, in RPP on Friday. It's in the last slot on Friday, but he'll give the full deck presentation and he'll talk about the things he was going to bring to this group. If I may, Jim can correct me here if I got this wrong, but I believe I understand that you can also bring to our mailing list potential work items for us to consider. So he has part of this slide deck is calling out some issues of consistency for EPP between consistency in EPP between what we do now and what RPP is going to do. And so there may be some work for us to consider. He will be also calling that out and bringing that to our attention. And you can bring that to the mailing list. Correct, Jim? Hope I didn't misrepresent all of that. Yes. Okay. So he'll do that for us. So unfortunately, we won't get that presentation here today, but you can watch it in RPP on Friday. Hopefully he'll get his sound fixed by then. Back to you.
All right, moving on, continuing with the agenda, potential new work. We have 4 documents or 4 presentations in this section. And the first one is domain variant support for EPP from Jim.
Okay, I'm going to stand up and do this here. Just as to flag specifically, this is me as an individual bringing this to this working group. So as chairs, Jorge and Antoine will be managing this work with the group. Many thanks to Michael Bowland. He's not actually here with us, unfortunately. And also to Arndt G. Not even going to try, unfortunately, to pronounce his name right here at ICANN, who has put a lot into this work. Okay. The first 9 slides here, as I said on the mailing list, are actually a repeat. These are from a presentation that was done 2 IETF meetings ago when we talked about domain variants. But these are really just here for context and a recollection to remind us of what went on here. I'm going to stop briefly on one of the slides in the principles to talk about something that we added, but then I really only want to jump down to the open issues at the bottom and get to that and talk about the ongoing work that we have been doing. And then we really want to end with requesting that the working group adopt this work. So looking for a sense of the room, that people believe this is interesting, and then hopefully the chairs will pick this up and seek to do a call for adoption. So passing through here quickly, on the guiding architectural principles, when we took on this work, these things are all important, and it's the middle bullet item, which is something that we added. We really need to get into this notion of related domain objects must be managed by the same entity. It was always something which was on our mind, but we hadn't called it out as an architectural principle. But as we got into doing another layer of detail in this document, we realized that it's a pretty important concept. And it's important to add that up here and put it right up front. And I see there's a question from Ruth right away, and I'll take questions clarifying as we go along here.
Ruth Trevorell and Nominate. Just while we're talking about same entity, I wanted to ask about, I don't know what they're called anymore, thick registries, non-minimal data set registries. So do we have the same requirement on registrants where we have the registrant data?
Yes. The same entity is a principle that applies, is intended to apply to the system. So from the point of view of the EPP transaction, what the registry sees is an assertion from the registrar that the same entity is managing those objects. To make it even more concrete, yes, the registry is required to, it has to be the same registry that handles the variant set of related objects, and the registrar of record for that set has to ensure that the registrant is the same for all of those objects in the variant set.
Right, but where we're storing the registrant in our data set, can we not just check that?
You could. You could. I mean, well, I'm not understanding what you're suggesting. I mean, certainly the registry, if you have a thick registry and you have all the data, sure, why not?
Right, I just think it'd be quite good for those of us who aren't minimal data set registries if we actually had that requirement in the draft. It doesn't say we can't, but I think, sure, yeah.
Yes, that would be true. Thank you, Q, for that. But nothing stop you from adding more policy. The concern here in this is there is a movement towards minimal data sets for GTLD registries. And that'll be the dominant case for GTLD registries. CCTLD registries are mixed and they do their own thing. So Rick also puts his hand up, please.
Just a very brief, hyper-specific comment. The data that the registry has may not be exactly what is going on at the registrar. And so, and this is really specific only to people that super really care about this, like me. And so like, we can take this offline, but like a registry has to be very careful not to confuse what you know or what you've been told with what is the truth. So just, that's going to show up very weird in the transcript. So, but we can take that offline. Yeah, even for Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. One of the things we're trying to be very careful about in this document, and so in this ideally a standard, if it gets that far, is not to confuse policy with what the technical standard should allow. So, but yeah, there be dragons. So we're trying to draw that line carefully. And certainly that's a test that folks can check with as you review the material and watch, you can see whether or not we have properly drawn that line and take care of that. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna skip through the rest of these slides here kind of quickly. These all have been there before, unless somebody wants to ask a clarifying question about them, that's fine. They're all just a copy of what was seen before. I'll add one little bit of commentary. There's this RDAP slide in here. It was in there in IETF 121. For the moment, we're focused on EPP. This is kind of a note slide, if you will, to us. Ultimately, we want to add a similar specification for RDAP so that it can properly, you can query about variants and such. And so this is just a reminder to us as we're managing the EPP stuff, what it's going to look like on the RDAP side. And so we're just sort of carrying this for the moment, and we'll get to specifying this later, the details of all of this as we finish up on the EPP side. Okay, so there's two slides here of open issues. I want to call them out in part just to acknowledge that, there is ongoing work. We're now in a place where we do want broader participation and broader points of view. The people we've been talking to and have been contributing to this document are, just very focused on our registry problem space that we're trying to solve. But EPP in particular is not really totally focused on TLDs and GTLDs, and that's been the space we've been coming at this from. although we're trying to be general. And so we want to, that's one of the reasons, this is the reason for asking for a working group adoption. At this point, we think that we've gotten to a place where this is a good thing. These two open issues significant are kind of important. That's why they're significant. The first one there, I was sort of leading up to. Right now, the document talks about TLDs and variant groups and a variant set. One of the things that we just realized, honestly, in the last few weeks, so we didn't try to change the document because it's a pretty extensive change, is to move more in the direction of the base EPP spec. We think, we're pretty sure that we can't talk about variants, we should talk about related groups. And the reason for that is driven primarily by the need to support Latin diacritic marks. There, on the policy side, honestly, there is a desire to apply the same entity principle to, for example, Quebec and Quebec, with and without the E with the diacritic mark, and other kinds of characters in TLDs and for SLDs. And so it's important that they also be able to use this. And with that in mind, this is no longer about variants because diacritic marks are not driven by LGR tables like variants are. So that's a pretty extensive discussion that we have to get into and change in the document. But we're going to move from talking about variants to talking about related groups. And then in addition, we want to talk about registries, not TLDs, just as the EPP spec does, and sort of move in that direction. And one of the reasons for that is in applying the same entity principle, it's important to acknowledge that everything in that related group needs to be with the same registry, which I think gets a little bit to what you were asking about, Ruth. So this is not about TLDs, it's just about a registry and everything being in the same registry. And so what that means to a registry and a registrar then is more easily applied. One other big significant issue of consistency is right now the way we've been thinking about this is we use creates for creating the primary label, and we use the update command for managing the other elements of the related group. Okay, but unfortunately we went back and then we used delete for removing elements of the related group. And now in the interest of consistency with the way everything works, our internal suggestion is using update to also do the removal of an element of the variant group other than the primary label. And so that just has an impact in the way other things are worded and other things go in the document. So those are kind of consistency things. And I'll just quickly, these are just some things that we're doing in general. Jim Gould has the EPP extensibility and extension analysis. We didn't get that presentation here, but we've seen all of that. We're looking at that. We need to be careful to make sure that we maintain alignment with that, just as he's going to be making sure that our EPP maintains alignment with that. We are looking to make better support for registrars in particular. So there's a bunch of little things here that we want to do in some of these commands and the way we've done them to make it much easier for registrars to work with related groups. And then, of course, there's a lot of work to be done about response codes and error messages. If you've looked at the draft, there are some in there, but clearly we need to give that a really thorough review. And that's another case where we'd appreciate much broader as we get into documenting those, what our suggestions are. We need for others to think about that and let us know if that makes sense. That's actually it. The only thing left is to ask for working group adoption. And I think I've said enough at that. So Scott, please.
Thank you, Jim. Scott Hollenbeck. I have no worries that this group has the EPP expertise to take on and work on this draft. I worry greatly about IDN or internationalization expertise. We used to have an internationalization directorate. We no longer do. So when we consider adoption here, I'd like to make sure that we also talk a little bit about how we get that commentary, feedback, and review of people who know more about the internationalization topic than many of us do.
Thank you for that. Excellent comment. We have been talking to and working with IDN experts, if you will, on the ICANN side, on the policy side, but you're right, we need the technical review too. We'll look to our ADs to help us in that respect. Who's next up in the queue? I can't see the whole queue.
It's me. Hello. So I come to the microphone to bring up everyone's favorite topic, DNSSEC. Reading the draft, this appears that these are just variants that are kind of attached to a domain object, and all the other properties of that domain object are then applied to the variant. This doesn't work for DNSSEC because the DS records are necessarily different. Now, there is support in the EPP DNSSEC extensions for giving a key instead of a DS record, but then that would require an update, a further update to the registry systems to support processing these keys and generating the DS records instead of just publishing the DS records that the client gave you in the zone. I'm also not a particular fan of creating and deleting relating objects through the update command, and it may actually, I think a better approach to this may just be to have these created through the create and delete command so that the attributes can be updated separately, such as the DS records, and then we don't have this weird inconsistency between update and delete. And policy can then define which objects are fixed to that of the primary and which can be changed.
So, excellent comments. I think the only answer I can give at this point is we've had quite some discussion about that amongst ourselves, all of it. We should continue that on the mailing list and just see. I mean, we're kind of in this position where we are, but I don't want to close the discussion that you're raising. We should certainly explore more deeply from others the technical implications of the choice that we've made, and see where we go with that. But thank you.
All right. The next one in the queue is Gavin.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Am I coming through? Good. So a couple of comments on the document as I've read it and from what you've been discussing in the room today. First one is, I think this document would greatly benefit from a clear description of the problem it's trying to solve. Because I think without that, it's hard for a reader to understand, specifically what the technical and policy gaps are that this document is trying to fill. I want to comment, a follow up from what Q said about the issue of using update to add and remove variants of an existing object. My understanding from discussions in the policy space was that this was quite contentious, and I think there are some people for whom, as a matter of policy, this approach would not be acceptable. And some of the things I've heard, for example, that if it's an update command, then it's therefore not a billable transaction, and that obviously has a direct financial impact on a registry operator if they can't charge you for creating these variants. And it concerns me that there may be too many policy assumptions that this document is making when it's outlining its technical design. And I don't feel, I think if we're going to, I think it's worth having a clear analysis of what those assumptions are so that they can be picked out, because I don't want us to produce a document that can't be implemented because it doesn't meet the policy needs. And obviously the policy needs are much broader than just the GTLD world. It also includes CCTLDs as well. You mentioned in the one of the slides using info as a way of generating or returning a list of variants. I think that for me kind of raises alarm bells. As a previous server implementer, variants can be on the order of millions. And that could have a significant impact. EPP is a provisioning protocol, and the consequences of having to generate and return millions of labels in an info response, I think would put my hackles up if I was responsible for implementing that. I think it was a good change that you made to try and generalize the text around variants versus related groups. I think that's a good, that was in my notes. There was something I wanted to bring up, and it's good to see that that's been addressed. So that was something I think is good. I think this, I do think there is a problem here that needs to be solved, and I think this is the right way to start solving that problem. But just wanted to flag up some thoughts on the document that I'd read.
So thank you, Gavin, for that. Let me make a request that you bring questions as to your policy concerns being met or not met to the mailing list. I probably would like to talk with you directly about that anyway at some point, because again, this was born out of knowledge about where the policy was headed. So I do want to make sure that all of that gets addressed. I want to speak to your info comment quite directly. Yes, our position initially started out as not wanting to ever return the complete potential related group, but it is important to be able to return the activated variants or the activated members of the related group. It's always possible that that could be quite large, but our best guess at the moment, as we understand things, maybe you have a different point of view, and it'd be good to explore this further on the list, but that will always be smaller than the potential millions that variants could be in general. So it's just about the activated ones, not the allocatable ones that will be returned by the registry in these commands. Other than that, I take on board your comments. Let's take that to the list and we'll follow up and make sure that we take care of things. So thanks.
All right, Ruth, go ahead, please.
Ruth Trevorell, Nominate. This might be exactly the kind of question you were saying you'd rather have on the list, but do you intend to think about how lock statuses interact with this, in particular transfer prohibited?
I'm sorry, say the last bit again. Do we intend to look at what? I'm sorry?
Transfer prohibited statuses.
Transfers?
Transfer prohibited status. So if there's a few variants in a group that have a lock applied, how would that interact with requests to transfer the group?
I believe that's covered to the extent that
I couldn't see it, but I may
a
have missed
related
it.
group is handled together, is handled as a set. It's always handled as a group.
So status
So
would have to
transfer
apply to all
prohibited
set.
would just be applied to always to the group.
Right, okay.
Right. That would be the intent. Okay.
All right.
I think I leave it with that. The request is, is this something that we could consider adopting?
I don't know.
So Jim is asking for a formal adoption request now, or so take it to the mailing list. That's the first question, first answer, of course. On the mailing list, we decide on whether or not we adopt. But if you're asking for feedback so far, because this document has been expired for some times, there's a new version now, and I think we first need to discuss if this is really a document for adoption. So ask for feedback first on the mailing list, and then do the formal adoption request to the chairs.
Okay. Thought I had done that, but we'll do that more clearly again. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. All right. The next presentation is domain registry grace period. Mapping for EPP.
Does this work?
It sure does. And now it will.
Now it will. Okay. I'm Rick Wilhelm. I'm going to present this. I'm going to present this here because I'm here and Roger and Gavin are not. You saw Gavin on the screen just a minute ago. So he's definitely present and he's here now. Very good. And he's actually bigger than me. Gavin, you have to know your head is oddly large on the screen. So you got that going for you. Okay. We have a rather small, tight deck. Hopefully you'll find this simple. Okay, what are we talking about? This is an update to 3915. And the first thing you're thinking about is, wow, that is a small, low number. We haven't seen a number that low get touched in a long, long time. This is one of Scott's 400 RFCs. Is it 400 RFCs that Scott's written? I really don't know. Scott's like, we could, that's a good bar bet. This one describes the extension that maps grace periods, published in 2004. Not a lot of us were in the room in 2004 when this was done. It was an AD sponsored independent submission. I was talking with Scott, and he was actually thinking that it was AD sponsored because this was in the time after EPP was originally done, but before the REGEXT was formed, and that EPPXT, yeah. So it was sort of in those halcyon days before REGEXT even existed. So that's why it was an AD sponsored. So why are we talking about touching this thing, which is laying solid and with its low number untouched for so long? Well, not so long ago, Gavin, right over there, was working on some code to do compliance testing for some registries, automated compliance testing. And he stumbled across basically a bug where the documentation didn't match the code, essentially. As we all know, as engineers, trust the code. Don't trust the documentation. What we found is that in the RFC, the bit in the bottom here where it says max element name max occurs unbounded existed, but the text at the top said a single. So what happened was the XML schema that was published omitted the max occurs. That got fixed because the schema was found to govern, but we can't go ahead and fix the RFC that fixed the single without actually doing a BIS and updating it. And so that's sort of what we're here to talk about. So the impact is that if this kind of doesn't get touched, a client obviously that was expecting to see the single, as we previously described, could be unpleasantly surprised if they write their code to the documentation and not to the schema. And so that would lead to, silly things like seg faults and whatnot. What we're doing is we've got a document that's out there. This does the corrected text, and it defines a new namespace to do that. And while this previously was an individual submission doc, this we'd like to run it through the group, through the working group, because any AD that would try to do an individually sponsored submission like this would get looked at and said, why are you not running it through the working group? That seems silly. So if you pull up this draft that we've got the link to here, and you pull up Scott's original 3915, you will see staggeringly few differences. That's exactly on purpose. This is a very targeted incision to kind of go in, clean up that one couple word change. There's a little bit of editorial tightening and tweaks, but that's really it. So that's kind of what we've got here. With that, kind of looking for discussion, and Q has a hand up.
So just to clarify, the goal of this is to fix one typo and that's it, and we're doing nothing else.
If you do a diff, you will see a little bit more in full disclosure.
Yep.
If you do a diff, but materially, the goal is
the only technical change is fixing that typo.
The only practical change is fixing that typo.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And any others? Pablo. And I see Jim's hand is up too. So Jim's next. Pablo.
Pablo Polytechnic. So I think the other change that the implementers will notice is the namespace upgrade with the new version, which kind of makes everyone to migrate. So if this is a case, I would ask whether this is the only change that we want to do. Let's say I regret that Jim was not giving the presentation today about findings, because one of the findings from extension analysis was actually to figure out that nobody knows why we have the reports of the restore. Well, we have this two-step process, and one of the conclusions was to maybe make it one-step process at least optional. So this may be a chance to incorporate this.
It not something I'm interested in tearing open, just candidly, right? So there's a for those that haven't read Jim's analysis, he identifies some stuff about the restore where there's a two-step process in it, and it could be simplified to a one-step process, which could be considered an improvement, but to do so would cause a fair bit of change, and that is something that the group could consider, but that's not really the goal of what is being submitted here. The goal of being submitted here is to clean up something that can't be handled via the editor's erratum process, the RFC editor's erratum process. We have to do this thing in order to clean up a glitch in the RFC. This is not a proposal to consider what I would call a functional change to the way that that this RFC works. So,
Jim, before you start, can you keep it short because we're running out of time, please?
Sure. I think this is a no-brainer. Just get it done. However, I'm confused that we need to have a BIS document for this. If it's a minor editorial change to the text, I don't think we shouldn't need to go through this rather complicated and excessive proposal process. Why can't we just flag it through as an editorial change and get it through that way? Why do we need to have a BIS?
Yeah, I have to claim, sort of ignorance of the IETF gods for that. But there was that was previously attempted, and this was deemed. My understanding is that this was deemed too material to be able to be done via that mechanism.
Is that what Ori told you?
Not me personally, but when this arose, it was deemed too material for that.
So this is not my group, but I would think that I would first consult Ori, but in my opinion, as an individual, I think ABIS is appropriate, just because we don't have other mechanisms. So.
But please, very briefly, please.
Very quickly. So just a clarifying question. I was mentioning that because the namespaces change, so it's actually tiny specification change, but major change for the operators to migrate. So that's why I propose an opportunity to look at a bit wider.
Sure. Yep. Thank you. Yep. And my understanding is that we're required to do a namespace change due to, like, we don't have a choice in that matter either. And shrugs shoulders for the transcript. Right.
If we have time, I can answer that because it was me who made the decision to change the namespace. It was basically because the schema is changing, and I think if you're changing the schema, I think it's going to be an issue for the implementers, for people consuming the schema if the schema is changing, but it has the same namespace as a different schema. Obviously, the schema in the document isn't changing, but there will be a deployed base of people who took the schema from the IANA registry before it was fixed, and that's the reason why I feel like a schema change is appropriate. Sorry, okay. Namespace change.
Okay, we're running out of time. We have 2 more presentations, so we have to move it to the list, please. Okay, next step, Extension registry for EPP protocol by Scott.
All right, Kevin, talk fast. You start here.
Sure. So this is actually something that's come up again from the same project that I was working on that found the errata in 3915. So I was doing some work on the APP extension registry, came across some issues and raised them, and it's in a conversation with Scott and some of the other members who are of the reviewer group. So what I want to talk about is firstly, for those who don't know, there is a registry for EPP extensions. This is the RFC 7451. And obviously having a registry enhances interoperability because it's a place where people can go and see what extensions may exist. Subject to expert review. So if you submit a request to IANA to register your extension, Scott will be the first point of contact, but then there's a set of other secondaries who will be involved as well. So I found some issues. But current status of the registry, we have 44 entries. There are various reasons, which I won't go into, why I think that's likely to go up. But you can see here how it's broken down. Majority of them are informational, with a sort of slightly smaller minority that are standards track. Next slide. So here is a couple of examples of the issues that I found. We have some namespaces that are problematic. URN namespaces are supposed to be registered, so you can't kind of unilaterally declare your own namespace inside a URN because they're supposed to be, these identifiers are supposed to be registered with a namespace registry. But you can see here there are a couple of registrations which are using URN prefixes that are not in the URN prefix registry, and there are also some extensions that are using IETF URN prefixes, and these are not registered in the IETF registry for URNs. So these are problematic because they could conflict with future or existing work in at the IETF that might require the use of these namespaces. So and obviously there are possible root causes here. Copy and paste is probably the most likely, or perhaps I can certainly say in my early days working in EPP, I thought that the URN IETF was somehow magical, or there's things that were on their way to becoming an RFC but never got there, or which have been copied from such a document. So these are some of the things that I think may arise and have caused these problems. Next slide. So over to Scott. He can talk about some of the ideas for improving the registry.
Right. Thanks, Kevin. So the draft was written at a time when REGEXT did not exist. And so it contains guidance on, hey, how are you supposed to manage these extensions? One of the suggestions was take this to the EPPX list. Well, EPPX, the list still exists. It actually forwards to REGEXT. We've tested and confirmed that, but it's confusing. It makes a lot more sense to tell people, take this to the REGEXT list. Now, of course, this means we're only punting this problem for now. Eventually, REGEXT is going to go away to be replaced by something else. We'll deal with that problem after I'm retired. We also want to update the evaluation criteria, though, because one of the reasons we've got some of these inconsistencies in the registry is because the experts have let a few slip through. Imagine that, we're human, we make mistakes. Fire them both. So we wanted to call out explicitly, hey, when you're looking at these extensions, take a look at these URNs, right? Make sure that you're using, an IETF namespace for IETF documents, that they're appropriately registered as they need to be, right? And then also a little bit of guidance there, because we've got some that might be considered, problematic, quote unquote. We want to encourage registrants to go back and fix those. It's an IANA registry. This is as easy as a note to IANA. Hey, would you please update my entry in the registry to change X to Y? Couple best practices.
as Gavin described, we want to make sure we call these out explicitly, provide recommendations as appropriate. And that's it. It's really a fairly short, quick update, much like we were just talking about for 3915 bis. Any questions?
Okay, please, we have no time, so make the questions and discussion on the list, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And the last presentation, Mario, are the responses extension for verification station information. We are totally on the top of the hour, so please make it really brief, please.
This is a proposal for a new RDAP extension for verified contact information. What is it for? It allows to display the verification status information in the RDAP response for contact fields such as email addresses, phone numbers, and postal addresses, and also custom information. Why? What is the rationale behind this proposal? Is that currently RDAP responses do not include explicit information about whether the content information has been verified or not. So, to my knowledge, currently there are almost all European registries carry on procedure to verify the accuracy of contact data, especially registrant data. But the outcomes of this procedure is unknown outside. So this extension could be useful in context where content verification may be legally required or at least strongly recommended. For example, it can support the compliance with Article 28 of European Union NIS2 directive, and basically the ultimate goal is to improve data quality and trustworthiness of RDAP responses. How to accomplish it? Basically, we can add a new top-level object member named verified contacts underbar data added to the entity object. The object keys are contact details like those used in the RDAP contact draft. Each value is an object containing at the moment 2 members, a verification date that is a required property, and a method, an optional method indicating the verification method. A server may use the old key to signal that all data has been verified. These are some possible verification methods. They can address one contact detail or multiple contact details altogether. This is obviously a non-comprehensive list, is a draft list, so it can be reviewed and other methods can be added. Next steps are to add the verification method to the RDAP JSON values registry, add the support for semantic versioning, verify if the working group finds this proposal interesting, and request the working group adoption eventually, ahead of the IETF meeting in Shenzhen. Some discussion points, maybe it could be helpful to include information about a verification performed by a third-party service, like the verifier, the verification, a field identifying the verification, and additional information about the verification performed. Sorry. This last slide is to remind everyone of the upcoming registration operation workshop. The submission are still allowed, so the program committee invite everyone to submit presentation and panel proposals about everything you consider appealing and interesting, and with a special focus to operational aspects. So we look forward to seeing you virtually next September.
All right. Thank you, Mario. Comments and discussion and questions, please, to the mailing list. So,
One word. He hasn't spoken all day.
okay. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Style from Core Association. I'm really happy to see that there's movement in this area, because verification is one of the things that is required but never defined. So we're, it's really good to be doing something. And we've been working on that on our registries in a number of ways. And one of the difficulties that we find with the existing available places, where something could be put, is to establish a relationship between the verification of a contact and the domain for which, of course, that contact or the party identified in the contact would have had to take responsibility, which is essentially not something that can just be in the contact record itself. It has to be somewhere else. I'm sure, did you do some work on that question as well?
This is the first proposal, so everything can be updated, can be improved. So it's a very draft proposal. So I invite everyone who is interested in moving this document forward to provide feedback on the mailing list, so we can improve this draft.
Okay. Any other business? Nope. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming for the REGEXT group.
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Welcome to the end of the meeting.
There you go. I'm in. I'll start singing now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. That's funny.
I thought we had half an hour more.
I'm sorry?
I thought we had half an hour more.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. Because it ended 11.
Normally the session ends.
When he pointed out to me that we were running really late, it was like, oh, okay, we need a. I think I only went over by a minute.
You went over quite a bit, and actually I wanted to jump into the queue, but I didn't. So.
Okay, well, you guys could have cut off the discussion of my document too, because I really just wanted to get to the request for adoption. I didn't really want to take a lot of questions about possible things. I did try even when answering the questions.
Yeah, we have to go outside.